What if the pull you feel is not proof of weakness, but evidence of a summons? Not a flaw to be hidden in the dark, but a bell that rings from the center of your being, calling you to stand taller than you have ever stood. Desire has been misread for too long, as if it were only a fire that burns down houses, never the hearth that warms a home. Look closer. When you stop selling your energy to every passing spark, you discover that desire is not an enemy to be suppressed, but a current to be mastered, a raw voltage waiting for a worthy direction. Abstinence, then, is not the absence of life. It is the stewardship of it. It is the moment you gather what is scattered, recall what was least, and seat your power back inside your own bones. The world will say you are repressing yourself. The world confuses self-possession with self-denial. You are not shrinking, you are ascending. You are taking your hands off the noisy levers and placing them on the quiet ones that actually move destinies. There is a shift that begins almost imperceptibly. You do not become a statue. You become a tuning fork. The mind that used to flicker steadies. The body that used to rush decelerates into strength. Your atmosphere thickens, not with arrogance, but with gravity. You speak less and are heard more. Doors you once rattled begin to open, not because you demanded them, but because your field now carries the weight of a man who can be trusted to walk through them. This is the hidden economy of consecration. Every yes to alignment cashes out 1,000 tiny compromises you use to make just to feel alive. You learn that stillness is not emptiness. It is storage. It is where voltage accumulates until silence itself starts to carry your name. Abstinence is not a calendar with tally marks. It is a covenant. It says, I refuse to trade eternal strength for momentary relief. It says, I will not recruit my body to betray my future. It says, I will treat my mind as a sanctuary rather than a billboard. When you live that way in secret, the spiritual world does not award you a badge. It recognizes a frequency. Darkness loses leverage because you no longer bargain with loneliness. Manipulation loses access because you no longer need to be flattered into forgetting who you are. Even temptation changes strategy. It stops shouting and starts whispering, hoping you will mistake chemistry for calling. You won't, not anymore. Because the same fire that once scattered you is now the fire by which you read the fine print on every invitation. Let's be honest, this path is not glamorous at first. The earliest victories have no audience. No one claps when you close a tab. No choir sings when you put your phone in another room. Yet those quiet decisions are the anvil on which your future is forged. They clear the fog the world says is normal. They teach your nervous system to recognize peace without sedation. They return to you the first birthright of any man who would lead: sight. You begin to see where your attention leaks, where your habits lie, where fantasy has been disguising itself as comfort. And as the leaks are sealed, energy returns with interest. You think more cleanly, want more wisely, move more slowly without losing speed. The result is not a colder life, it is a concentrated one. If your heart is beating a little heavier as you hear this, good. That weight is not shame. It is authority finding a seat. Authority does not arrive with a trumpet. It arrives with a choice. Not the dramatic, once-in-a-lifetime choice, but the exact choice in front of you right now. Will you keep feeding the static that blurs your purpose, or will you reclaim your signal? Will you pour your strength into the soil of a future that needs you, or spill it into the sand of the present for a moment that doesn't? No one can answer that for you.
But when you answer it for yourself consistently,
a different future begins to answer you back. If this is landing, if part of you recognizes the man you came here to become, mark it now with a small, decisive gesture that keeps this field open between us. Tap like and subscribe, not as a performance but as practice. It is a 2-second vow that says, I choose to remain in this frequency. I choose to keep my focus fed. Simple, quiet, effective, and we keep walking together. Stay close. The flame in you was never meant to burn you down. It was meant to light your way. In the next movement, we will step into the first arena where this transformation is won or lost. Not in public, but in the hidden chambers of thought. We will name the fog for what it is, learn to read the signal beneath the noise, and begin reclaiming the ground that determines every other victory. Welcome to the invisible war of the mind. Before any battle is won in the body, A quieter campaign is fought in the mind, a campaign so subtle that many mistake it for personality, for mood, or for just how life is now. It begins as a fine mist, a glance that lingers half a second longer than your integrity can carry, a scroll that stretches past intention, a memory that returns not to teach but to tease. Little by little, fog settles on the instruments of attention. Thoughts lose their crisp edges. Decisions feel heavier than they are. You move through the day as if the room is familiar, but the light switch is hidden. The tragedy is not that you are weak, it is that you are distracted. Distraction is not merely the theft of minutes. It is the quiet vandalism of meaning, and meaning is what gives a man his direction. Desire, untended, recruits the nervous system into emergency. Your breath shortens, your gaze narrows, your inner dialogue accelerates and bargains. Only this once. I'll reset tomorrow. I deserve this. These are not arguments. They are scripts, well-practiced lines the mind recites when it wants relief more than it wants reality. Relief promises to numb the pressure. Reality invites you to metabolize it. The moment you choose relief, you outsource leadership to impulse. And impulse is a reckless driver. The wheel jerks. The day fractures. You arrive at night feeling used by your own choices, as if some stranger borrowed your name and returned it wrinkled. Shame tries to claim the cleanup. But shame is a poor janitor. It hides the mess rather than restore the room. There is, however, a different way to inhabit the mind, an interior stance that neither fears desire nor flatters it. It begins with naming the fog, not theatrically, not with vows and speeches, but with steady clarity. I am not my urges. I am the chooser who observes them. That small sentence reassigns authority. The watcher steps forward. You create a millimeter of space between stimulus and response, and in that millimeter, freedom fits. From there, practice the simplest form of sovereignty, a single full breath. Inhale until the abdomen, not the chest, moves. Exhale as if you were setting down a weight. You are not performing spirituality. You are recalibrating chemistry. A nervous system that can breathe can choose. One honest breath will often spare you 100 apologies. Guard your inputs with the seriousness you reserve for sacred things, because that is what attention is. Sacred. The eyes are gates. The ears are gates. The fingertips that scroll are gates. Unattended gates invite vandalism. Attended gates create gardens. If you once nourished a habit of default scrolling, replace it with a habit of deliberate arrival. Do not simply avoid bad. Choose better in advance. Curate a morning playlist that softens the inner jaw. Keep a slim book close whose sentences lift rather than heat the blood. Step into 5 minutes of silence before any screen. The mind is not a landfill. It is a cathedral. Cathedrals are built one stone at a time, and they collapse the same way. Your stones are the minutes you spend. The body, too, is an ally when rightly engaged. Lust thrives in stillness without purpose, in posture without breath, in rooms without windows. Move not frantically, but faithfully. A brisk walk in open air, 10 slow push-ups with full exhale, a glass of cold water held like a sacrament. These are not hacks. They are signals. They tell the mind we are not prey. We are present. You will notice something almost immediate. Colors sharpen a notch. The sound of your own thoughts decelerates. The compulsion to reach for the familiar anesthetic loosens. It is not that the urge vanishes. It is that you have grown larger than it. You are no longer a man trying to outrun a dog. You are a shepherd calling your attention back into the fold. Expect resistance and call it by its right names. There is the whisper of entitlement. I worked hard. I earned this. There is the whisper of despair. I always fail. Why bother? There is the whisper of delay. I'll be holy later. Today is complicated. Entitlement confuses pleasure with reward. Despair confuses habit with fate. Delay confuses timing with permission. None of them tell the truth. The truth is simpler and sterner. You become what you rehearse. If you rehearse scattering, you will be scattered. If you rehearse recollection, gathering your attention, returning to breath, choosing the next right small act, you will be recollected. The brain is plastic. Rehearsal is the mold. As clarity accumulates, a deeper sight awakens. You begin to recognize patterns not as moral failures to self-flagellate over, but as information to act upon. Which moments of the day tend to loosen your guard? Which rooms make you smaller than you are? Which conversations leave you hungry for counterfeit comfort? Literacy replaces superstition. You stop calling your worst hour mystery and start calling it 4:30 p.m. With literacy comes design. You place buffers where you used to place excuses. You give your future self gifts your past self never thought to prepare. A phone that sleeps outside the bedroom. An evening ritual that lands your mind. A short list of brothers who answer when you call, not to fuss over you, but to steady your aim. This steadying work is not glamorous, and that is its glory. Quiet victories are how empires are built, within and without. When you close a tab before it closes you, when you look away before looking becomes longing, when you choose to sit with a single discomfort until it dissolves instead of feeding it another fantasy, you are not just being good. You are training your nervous system to prefer reality over rumor. Over time, reality rewards its loyalists. Focus returns like a friend who was waiting outside while you searched the wrong rooms. Ideas arrive not as borrowed echoes but as blueprints, fresh geometry with your fingerprints on it. You notice that the voice of God, once muffled by noise, has always been steady. It was your bandwidth that was congested. Clear the channels and guidance resumes. Do not be surprised when the world around you adjusts. Systems built on distraction do not know what to do with a man who can see. Advertising becomes less persuasive, outrage less delicious, flattery less nutritious. You stop being an easy mark for agendas that require your confusion to thrive. This is why a disciplined mind is a public service. It cannot be cheaply rented by every trend. It also makes you gentler. When you are no longer whipped by your own impulses, you stop whipping others with your expectations. Patience ceases to be a costume and becomes your climate. People will not always know why your presence settles the room. They will only feel that it does. None of this means desire disappears. Desire matures. It stops demanding to be fed and starts asking to be led. Led into craft, into devotion, into work that outlives the dopamine cycle. Led into relationships that do not perform intimacy, but practice it in unhurried hours. Led into worship that is less about noise and more about weight. This is the transformation abstinence was always pointing toward. Not a life with less fire, but a life where the fire lights rooms rather than burns them. A mind at peace does not become passive. It becomes precise. So mark this down in language even a child could carry. Your mind is a garden, not a battlefield you are doomed to lose. The weeds are loud because they are easy. The fruit is quiet because it is real. Pull what chokes, water what feeds, fence what matters. And when a stranger climbs the fence with sweet words and cheap seeds, escort him out without ceremony. This is your ground. Guard it with a calm that does not need to shout. You are not running from temptation. You are walking toward authority. From here, your interior weather has already begun to change. Cleaner air, truer light, steadier wind. As it does, something older and weightier rises to meet you. A presence that does not need to announce itself. A frequency that rooms feel before anyone knows why. In the next topic, we will step into that terrain where hidden victories become visible weight, the authority heaven recognizes, and learn why the world quiets when a consecrated man simply enters the door. Authority does not arrive with applause. It arrives with alignment. When a man wins hidden battles, closing doors no one knows he could open, choosing purity when no one is watching, something shifts in the atmosphere around him. Heaven answers sacrifice with trust. The result is not noise but weight, a quiet gravity that enters a room before his words do. People listen differently. Options appear without striving. This is not charisma, it is consecration. Such authority cannot be borrowed from mentors or purchased with technique. It is forged in secrecy, one sober yes at a time. Each act of restraint becomes a brick in an unseen foundation. Angels recognize the sound of a life that refuses compromise. Darkness recognizes the absence of leverage. Because brute tactics fail against a man who governs himself, temptation adapts, less obvious, more polished. The trial shifts from lust to flattery, from impulse to admiration, from quick chemistry to counterfeit calling. Discernment then becomes essential. Not every open door is a door from God. Not every pleasant presence is a blessing. Ask the questions that cut through perfume and timing. Does this connection deepen my obedience or dilute it? Does this opportunity require me to spend the clarity I fought to regain? What happens to my prayer life if I say yes? Authority listens more than it speaks, waits when ego wants to rush, and chooses a small, true step over a dramatic detour. Stewardship is the next layer. Influence is not a trophy. It is a responsibility to carry heaven's intent into ordinary spaces, workrooms, kitchens, texts, and quiet conversations. Speak when silence would be cowardice. Be silent when speaking would be performance. Let boundaries arrive like frames, not walls. This house is for truth. This time is for prayer. This body is for purpose. Keep your center low. Pass praise through you so it does not calcify into entitlement. Let correction refine you without shrinking you. You will notice subtle confirmations, rooms settle, distractions lose flavor, opportunities arrive on time. Do not confuse this ease with entitlement or permanence. Keep the habits that birthed it: early quiet, guarded inputs, honest confession, simple service. Guard proximity to God more fiercely than proximity to any platform. The first preserves authority, the second only publicizes it. In short, hidden victory, recognized frequency, entrusted responsibility. Hold it with watchfulness and gratitude. Next, we enter the crucible that refines or corrodes this weight, the test of attraction under increased visibility, and practice the discernment that protects purpose when attention arrives. When a man's inner world stabilizes, the outer world answers. Rooms grow quieter when you enter, not from fear, but from recognition. This is the hour when attention arrives dressed as admiration, opportunity, timing, chemistry. Early temptations were blunt. This one is refined. It does not shout through screens. It smiles across tables. It does not demand. It suggests. The question is no longer, can you resist impulse? It becomes, can you read intention? Attraction itself is not the enemy. It is proof that your field is no longer leaking. The danger is the counterfeit. Connections that mirror what you long for while quietly taxing what you fought to rebuild. Counterfeits often come with urgency. Why wait? Flattery. No one understands you like I do. Or premature intimacy. Oversharing, escalating access, spiritual language used as permission. The authentic arrives differently, without hurry, without performance, with a peace that makes you more faithful to God and more focused on purpose. Use 3 simple diagnostics. Fruit over feeling. After you spend time there, is your prayer life clearer or cloudier? Do your habits tighten or loosen? Does your attention return to mission or drift toward constant stimulation? Cost over chemistry. What will this connection cost your rhythms, sleep, study, service, fellowship? If the price is the very scaffolding that gave you clarity, the blessing is a bill, trajectory over talk. Where is this leading if nothing changes? Talk can be dazzling. Trajectories tell the truth. The right path makes you truer, not busier. Practice protections that keep discernment sharp. Delay access. Real alignment survives time. Keep shared spaces public and purposeful in the early stages. Serve together, study together, pray with others present. Maintain your non-negotiables, morning quiet, guarded inputs, weekly accountability, as sacred. The person who pressures you to relax what protects you is not protecting you. Name your pace aloud. I move slowly and honestly. Anyone offended by pace is unfit for covenant. Remember that attraction evolves as you rise. Once lust fails, the next tactic is ego. You will be offered relevance, audience, companionship that centers your image more than your obedience. Decline the stage that requires you to dim the altar. Influence that survives decades is built by saying no to good things that would dilute a God thing. Choose understatement over spectacle, truth over optics, depth over momentum. There are green flags too. The rare person who belongs in your future will guard your consecration with you, prays more than posts, honors your boundaries without negotiation, prefers clarity to drama, tells you finish your assignment first. You become more yourself in their presence, steadier, cleaner, funnier even, because you are not managing perception. Their counsel is slow and scriptural. Their curiosity is about your soul, not your platform. They are drawn to your stillness, not trying to possess it. If you stumble, do not dramatize it. Diagnose it. Where did you override your own signal? Which safeguard was missing?
Repair the trellis.
Do not curse the vine. Return to the practices that kept you sober. Call your brother. Tell the truth in one sentence. Take the next right small step. Purity is a path, not a pedestal. Hold this posture. Welcome what strengthens your assignment. Release what competes with it. You are not withholding love. You are refusing counterfeits so you can recognize the real. When you stand here long enough, attraction stops being a test and becomes a testimony. The world sees that intimacy and integrity are not rivals in you. From this ground, something larger awakens. Your life begins to outlive your lifetime. In the next topic, we'll step into the man who carries legacy, how hidden obedience becomes architecture for generations, and how to build influence that remains when applause is gone. Legacy is not a headline. It is a climate. It gathers in the rooms you leave behind, in the habits that remain when your name is no longer spoken, in the decisions that continue working long after you have moved on. A man who carries legacy is not manufactured by crowds or accelerated by trends. He is formed in hours no one measures, in the steady refusal to betray his center, in prayers that never post and in service that leaves no invoice. While others chase visibility, he cultivates weight. The weight does not make him louder. It makes him clearer. He does not need to perform significance, because significance is the natural consequence of coherence over time. Obscurity is not a punishment to this man. It is his workshop. He allows silence to stretch him until pride runs out of costume. He learns to forgive before anyone apologizes, to tell the truth without needing to win, to work carefully when no compliment is coming. The small exact act becomes his signature, the text sent on time, the promise kept without reminder, the apology offered without theatrics. These motions seem ordinary from the outside, but they rearrange the interior architecture where authority can safely live. Heaven entrusts more to hands that keep their shape when no one is watching, because those hands will not deform under pressure when many are. The atmosphere around him changes before the accolades ever do. Timelines settle in his presence. Confusion gets quieter without a lecture. People find themselves telling the truth because the air feels safe again. This is not magic, it is correspondence. A life ordered by prayer and restraint becomes a tuning fork. What is dissonant either finds harmony or drifts away. He does not chase influence. He tends to integrity, and influence finds the address. Opportunities arrive in the right season, not because he mastered strategy, but because he mastered pace. He has learned that timing is as holy as truth, and so he moves with precision without haste, letting doors be doors and not battering rams. Responsibility deepens as his radius expands. He thinks in generations even when his bank account thinks in weeks. He understands that one careless compromise can fracture a lineage, and that one quiet act of faithfulness can secure it. This knowledge does not make him brittle. It makes him careful. He chooses companions by alignment rather than appetite. He speaks blessings that outlive arguments. He prays for children he has not met, and neighbors he will never know, confident that intercession builds walls the eye cannot see, but time cannot ignore. The fruit of his obedience is not always measurable in the quarter, yet the city becomes subtly safer when he walks through it. Humility is the guardrail that keeps his strength from turning predatory. Praise passes through him like light through glass. Gratitude lingers, entitlement does not. Critique does not collapse him. He sifts it for truth and leaves the rest on the ground without bitterness. He remembers the nights when desire roared and loneliness pressed its weight against his chest, and he honors those memories as the furnace where his edges were softened. Because he remembers, he remains gentle. Power that remembers its price does not spend people to make points. Legacy does not mean a life without failure. It means a life that converts failure into formation. When he stumbles, he tells the truth quickly and repairs what he can. He does not narrate his fall to harvest sympathy, nor does he hide it to preserve image. He lets correction do its clean work, then resumes his post with quieter wisdom. This steadiness teaches those around him that holiness is not a performance but a posture, not a spectacle of strength but the art of returning to center quickly and often. In time, the proof appears in places where applause cannot follow. A son prays without being asked. A co-worker chooses honesty in a moment that would have paid well to lie.
A friend facing temptation hears a sentence he once spoke and puts his phone away.
Streets feel a touch lighter where he has shoveled them clean. This is the architecture of eternity rising from ordinary ground. It is not built in grand announcements, but in repeated yeses that no one can count. When such a man finally sleeps, the air he tended keeps working. Families breathe easier. Communities find a steadier keel. The fragrance of his obedience lingers like incense in rooms he no longer enters. And for those still walking, his life remains less a monument and more a map, showing that a man who conquers himself becomes shelter for many. From this ground, the question is no longer whether you can manage a moment of fire, but whether you can keep a hearth. To keep it, you will need rhythm and rule, a cadence strong enough to carry power without leakage. In the next movement, we will descend from ideal to practice and chart a path you can begin today. A 90-day ascent that teaches your life to hold what your spirit has already seen. Legacy is not a headline, it is a climate. It gathers in the rooms you leave behind, in the habits that remain when your name is no longer spoken, in the decisions that continue working long after you have moved on. A man who carries legacy is not manufactured by crowds or accelerated by trends. He is formed in hours no one measures, in the steady refusal to betray his center, in prayers that never post and in service that leaves no invoice. While others chase visibility, he cultivates weight. The weight does not make him louder. It makes him clearer. He does not need to perform significance, because significance is the natural consequence of coherence over time. Obscurity is not a punishment to this man. It is his workshop. He allows silence to stretch him until pride runs out of costume. He learns to forgive before anyone apologizes, to tell the truth without needing to win, to work carefully when no compliment is coming. The small, exact act becomes his signature. The text sent on time, the promise kept without reminder, the apology offered without theatrics. These motions seem ordinary from the outside, but they rearrange the interior architecture where authority can safely live. Heaven entrusts more to hands that keep their shape when no one is watching, because those hands will not deform under pressure when many are. The atmosphere around him changes before the accolades ever do. Timelines settle in his presence. Confusion gets quieter without a lecture. People find themselves telling the truth because the air feels safe again. This is not magic, it is correspondence. A life ordered by prayer and restraint becomes a tuning fork. What is dissonant either finds harmony or drifts away. He does not chase influence. He tends to integrity, and influence finds the address. Opportunities arrive in the right season. Not because he mastered strategy, but because he mastered pace. He has learned that timing is as holy as truth. And so he moves with precision without haste, letting doors be doors and not battering rams. Responsibility deepens as his radius expands. He thinks in generations even when his bank account thinks in weeks. He understands that one careless compromise can fracture a lineage and that one quiet act of faithfulness can secure it. This knowledge does not make him brittle. It makes him careful. He chooses companions by alignment rather than appetite. He speaks blessings that outlive arguments. He prays for children he has not met and neighbors he will never know, confident that intercession builds walls the eye cannot see but time cannot ignore. The fruit of his obedience is not always measurable in the quarter, yet the city becomes subtly safer when he walks through it. Humility is the guardrail that keeps his strength from turning predatory. Praise passes through him like light through glass. Gratitude lingers, entitlement does not. Critique does not collapse him. He sifts it for truth and leaves the rest on the ground without bitterness. He remembers the nights when desire roared and loneliness pressed its weight against his chest, and he honors those memories as the furnace where his edges were softened. Because he remembers, he remains gentle. Power that remembers its price does not spend people to make points. Legacy does not mean a life without failure. It means a life that converts failure into formation. When he stumbles, he tells the truth quickly and repairs what he can. He does not narrate his fall to harvest sympathy, nor does he hide it to preserve image. He lets correction do its clean work, then resumes his post with quieter wisdom. This steadiness teaches those around him that holiness is not a performance but a posture. Not a spectacle of strength, but the art of returning to center quickly and often. In time, the proof appears in places where applause cannot follow. A son prays without being asked. A co-worker chooses honesty in a moment that would have paid well to lie. A friend facing temptation hears a sentence he once spoke and puts his phone away. Streets feel a touch lighter where he has shoveled them clean. This is the architecture of eternity rising from ordinary ground. It is not built in grand announcements, but in repeated yeses that no one can count. When such a man finally sleeps, the air he tended keeps working. Families breathe easier. Communities find a steadier keel. The fragrance of his obedience lingers like incense in rooms he no longer enters. And for those still walking, his life remains less a monument and more a map, showing that a man who conquers himself becomes shelter for many. From this ground, the question is no longer whether you can manage a moment of fire, but whether you can keep a hearth. To keep it, you will need rhythm and rule, a cadence strong enough to carry power without leakage. In the next movement, we will descend from ideal to practice and chart a path you can begin today, a 90-day ascent that teaches your life to hold what your spirit has already seen. Power does not endure because it flared once. It endures because it learned a cadence. The next 90 days are less a challenge than a covenant, a season where you stop visiting alignment and start living there. Think of it as teaching your life a new rhythm, one measured not by spectacle but by steadiness. Begin by claiming a quiet hour that does not negotiate, an early gate through which every day must pass. Enter it with breath instead of noise, scripture that slows the blood instead of accelerates it, silence that resets the inner dials instead of demanding a rush of answers. You are not performing devotion. You are setting the metronome for everything that follows. Boundaries then take their rightful place, not as walls against joy, but as rails on a high bridge. Decide in advance what your eyes will welcome and what they will refuse, where your phone sleeps when you do, which rooms are for rest and which are for work, how your evenings land so the night does not become a marketplace for old cravings. Agreements made while you are clear spare you from bargaining when you are tired. The body becomes an ally again when you treat it as a stewarded instrument rather than a stage. Move daily in a way that teaches endurance more than vanity. Breathe deeply until the chest forgets panic. Build simple strength so your nerves remember what it feels like to push against weight without complaint. Sleep is not a luxury in this ascent. It is strategy. Shape your nights so rest arrives without having to fight its way past blue light and unfinished arguments. Attention must be cultivated like a garden, or it will be colonized like an empty lot. Give your mind inputs worthy of the man you are becoming. Replace the endless stream of stimulation with a smaller stream of substance that you revisit until it forms you. Speak to yourself with candor that is precise rather than cruel. Name what you are resisting and why, not to impress God with data, but to let your own body hear your spirit lead. When urges arrive like weather, do not dramatize them. Redirect them into action that pays dividends. Cold water on your face, air on your skin, a paragraph in your notebook, a set of push-ups that turns electricity into motion, a call to a brother who answers with steadiness rather than theater. The heart cannot live on denial alone. It thrives when you offer it better pleasures, clean joys that leave no debt. Craft and calling close the circuit so energy has a vessel. Hours left empty become habitat for temptation. Hours tasked with building become the kiln where character hardens. Put your hands to work on something that requires patience. Put your mind to study that asks for depth. Put your strength into serving someone who cannot repay you. As these motions repeat, you will notice familiar weather along the road. A boredom that knocks in the first week. An old rhythm that petitions around the third. A false invincibility that flirts around the midpoint. A fatigued reasonableness that suggests easing up when you are closest to clean momentum. Expect these climates like seasons and greet them by name. Recognition drains their drama. A man who knows the pattern is harder to ambush. Accountability keeps the ascent honest without turning it into performance. Choose a small circle that loves your formation more than your image, and report simply, with the brevity of craftsmen comparing notes at the bench. Let confession be swift and specific so repair can be swift and specific. Do not build a courtroom, build a workshop. In the same spirit, let your speech mature with your authority. Trade the language of doom for the language of choice. You are not a man who always fails. You are a man who chooses again and again to return to alignment. Words set the bit in the mouth of the inner horse. Set it gently and ride true. Joy must be relearned without the bribe of dopamine. Eat slowly with gratitude. Laugh in rooms that leave no aftertaste. Listen to music that lifts without hijacking. Watch sunsets as if they were instructions in patience. Joy is not a distraction from holiness. It is the oxygen holiness breathes. A man who knows clean joy is far harder to bait with counterfeits because his palate has changed. Finally, gather these intentions into a simple way of life you can remember on a tired day. Name your waking and your winding down, your reading and your refusal, your solitude and your service, your work focus and the boundary that keeps it from swallowing your soul. Review it every 7 days, not to soften conviction but to sharpen obedience. The aim is not a perfect score. It is a stable frequency that makes stumbling less likely and recovery quicker. You have climbed far enough to see that abstinence was never about deprivation. It was the doorway to transmutation. It gathered what was scattered, returned your signal to your own hands, and taught your nervous system the difference between relief and reality. In the quiet rooms where no one applauded, you traded impulse for intention, noise for breath, spectacle for substance. From that trade came clarity, and from clarity came authority, the unforced gravity that does not need to announce itself because heaven has already taken note. Then came discernment under magnetism, where admiration tried to dress itself as destiny, and you learned to choose trajectory over talk, cost over chemistry, fruit over feeling. Legacy began to take shape in those choices, not as a headline, but as a climate, an atmosphere people can breathe when they stand near you. And to keep that climate, you embraced rhythm, boundaries that are rails, habits that are sentries, joy without debt, accountability without theater. The mountain changed you. The valley will prove you. Now the work is integration. Carry your strength gently through ordinary doors. Let your mornings begin with presence instead of performance, so the day inherits your coherence, not your hurry. Keep your gates tended, the eyes, the ears, the fingertips that scroll. Because attention is where altars are built or broken. Guard the small promises that taught your soul to trust you. The phone that sleeps outside the room. The quiet hour that does not negotiate. The honest sentence that lands when excuses want to run. Lead with a steadiness that makes other people braver, not smaller. Speak when silence would be cowardice. Be silent when speaking would be theater. Refuse the opportunities that ask you to spend the clarity you fought to regain. Accept the assignments that make you truer, even when they come without applause. Do not romanticize the path ahead. Sanctify it. There will be days when the fog returns. Days when attention frays, days when an old door rattles with a familiar promise. Nothing is lost on those days if you remember the simplest craft you learned here. Breathe, name the weather, choose the next small, true act. Men who endure are not the ones who never feel wind. They are the ones who have learned how to tack into it without cursing the sea. When you stumble, do not perform repentance. Practice it. Tell the truth quickly. Repair what you can, and resume your pace without narrating your fall like a brand. Holiness is not a pose. It is the art of returning to center faster each time. Let your authority remain hospitable. Power that remembers its price refuses to spend people to make points. Keep your center low, pass praise through you so it becomes gratitude, not entitlement. Let correction refine you so it becomes wisdom, not shame. Choose community over crowds. A handful of honest voices who love your formation more than your image. Serve where no one sees and where thanks cannot find you. Power ferments when hoarded. It becomes wine when poured. Pray for those who will never know your name. Bless the streets you walk. Lay unseen brick after unseen brick until the city around you begins to echo the city within you. If this message steadied your breath and you want these reminders to meet you in the moments you need them most, tap subscribe now, not for algorithms, but as a small vow to keep this field open between us, to keep your soul supplied with clean words when the noise grows loud. If you feel a quiet yes rising, let it be simple and sincere, and then live it in the next ordinary hour. Thank you for walking this path with me, for your honesty in the hidden places, for your patience with slow miracles, for your courage to become someone you can trust. Keep the fire, share the heat, and stay small enough inside for God to remain large in you. Until we meet again, be well, stay aligned, and let your life speak even when you are silent.